What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so the big beautiful bill passes. Let's get into it. Check this out, y'all. What's in Trump's big bill? Once again, they're still refusing to call it beautiful. That passed Congress and will soon become law. This one's quite heavy, so I'm going to try to interject as little as possible for the sake of time. Let's get into it. Republicans muscled President Donald Trump's tax and spending cut bill through the House on Thursday, the final step necessary to get the bill to his desk by the GOP's self-imposed deadline of July 4th. I do like how they did say spending cut bill. Gotta love that. At nearly 900 pages, so there we go, that's good news. You know, it was 1,160 when it originally passed the House, then it was knocked down to 940, and now it's like 880-something pages. The legislation is a sprawling collection of tax breaks, spending cuts, and other Republican priorities, including new money for national defense and deportations. Yay. Democrats united against the legislation, but were powerless to stop it as long as Republicans stayed united. The Senate passed the bill, with Vice President J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote. The House passed an earlier iteration of the bill in May with just one vote to spare. It passed the final version 218 to 214. Tax cuts are the priority. Republicans say the bill is crucial because there would be a massive tax increase after December when tax breaks from Trump's first term expire. The legislation contains about $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. It's actually not that true because it's not any different from current tax policy. As a matter of fact, this would just be tax cuts if his 2017 Jobs Act were to expire. That's where they're getting that number from, and the tax rates would go back to where they were before. That's where they're getting the $4.5 trillion in tax cuts from. Now, there is a little bit extra, but it's not really that much, right? The Social Security tax breaks, the overtime and no taxes on tips thing, that's all a little bit extra, but that's not nearly even close to $100 billion. It's not. That's peanuts compared. The existing tax rates and brackets would become permanent under the bill, solidifying the tax cuts approved in Trump's first term. It temporarily would add new tax deductions on tip, overtime, and auto loans. There's also a $6,000 deduction for older adults who earn no more than $75,000 a year, a nod to his pledge to end taxes on Social Security benefits. That is right. So pretty much everybody making under $75,000 that receives Social Security doesn't pay any tax on that. So that means those payments are going to go up a little bit. It would boost the $2,000 child tax credit to $2,200. Millions of families at lower income levels would not get the full credit. Well, this was plucked out of an earlier article that I covered. That's not true. Simply because they don't pay taxes anyway. Lower income, the bottom 10% don't pay any taxes at all. Not federal income tax to where you can receive a deduction. So, I mean, they're kind of telling the truth, but once again, they leave out important information that would form your opinion different if you knew that information. A cap on state and local deductions called SALT would quadruple to $40,000 or for 5 years. It's a provision important to New York and other high tax states, though the House wanted it to last for 10 years. Yeah, and I don't know why. This is garbage. This is absolute garbage. This is basically red states are now going to subsidize blue states. There are scores of business-related tax cuts, including allowing businesses to immediately write off 100% of the cost of equipment and research. Proponents say this will boost economic growth, which is true. I mean, the logic works out here. The wealthiest households would see a $12,000 increase from the legislation, and the bill would cost the poorest people $1,600 a year, mainly due to reductions in Medicaid and food aid, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office analysis of the House's version. Yeah, see what they did right here, the House's version. Yeah, this was the previous version that the House originally passed that was changed by the Senate. But they're also lying about that because, once again, the poorest people in this country do not pay taxes at all. Money for deportations, a border wall, and the Golden Dome. The bill would provide some $350 billion for Trump's border and national security agenda, including for the U.S.-Mexico border wall and for 100,000 migrant detention facility beds, as he aims to fulfill his promise of the largest mass deportation operation in U.S. history. Money would go for hiring 10,000 new immigration and customs enforcement officers with $10,000 signing bonuses and a surge of Border Patrol officers as well. The goal is to deport some 1 million people per year. To help pay for it, immigrants would face various new fees, including when seeking asylum protections. For the Pentagon, the bill would provide billions for shipbuilding, munition systems, and quality of life measures for servicemen and women, as well as $25 billion for the development of the Golden Dome missile defense system. The Defense Department would have $1 billion for border security. How to pay for it? Cuts to Medicaid and other programs. Here we go with the lying again. Watch, you'll see how they lie about this. They manipulate everything, folks. To help partly offset the lost tax revenue and new spending, Republicans aim to cut back on Medicaid and food assistance for people below the poverty line, right? Because the only people that get food stamps is people below the poverty line. And Medicaid or Medicare. I forget which one covers the poor people, as a matter of fact. Republicans argue they are trying to right-size the safety net programs for the population that were initially designed to serve mainly pregnant women, the disabled, and children, and root out what they describe as waste, fraud, and abuse. So, when you have people that are on Medicare, Medicaid, and they're not supposed to be, like able-bodied adults that make over a certain amount, or people that's not even supposed to be in the country, the corporate press, they don't call that waste, fraud, and abuse. Just Republicans. But hang on just a second. The package includes new 80-hour-a-month work requirements for many adults receiving Medicaid and food stamps, including older people up to age 65. Parents of children 14 and older would have to meet the program's work requirements. Now, this is where I'm sure you've heard the Democrats keep yelling, 17 million people are going to lose their health care. That's where they're getting that number from, folks. That right there. So you mean to tell me that Democrats, they don't care that people are robbing from you? They don't. They absolutely don't. They don't care that we are subsidizing people's health care and their food for every single day of their life to people that don't want to get a job. That's what that means, folks. Why would they have work requirements, right? This doesn't pertain to anybody with a job, by the way. If you're getting Medicare, Medicaid, or food stamps, and you have a job, this doesn't affect you at all. This only affects people that have no job. Abso-freaking-lutely. And this is where they're getting that number from. This is what Democrats want to fund. People without a job. Why do they not have a job? I wonder why that is. This is people who choose not to work, folks, and choose to get a government handout. They want their entitlement programs because they deserve it, don't they? No, as a matter of fact, they don't. This is all nonsense. But that's where they're getting that 17 million people are going to lose their health care. That's the quote-unquote cuts. So it's not cuts, is it? No, it's not. As a matter of fact, they're adding work requirements so that if you do get subsidized by the government, you have to give back to the community, because this is a give and take, folks. The government is not designed to give you money. That is not what it's designed for. As a matter of fact, it's designed to take money from you. Right? We have to pay for roads, don't we? There's also a proposed new $35 copayment that can be charged to patients using Medicaid services. More than 71 million people rely on Medicaid, which expanded under Obama's Affordable Care Act, and 40 million use the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Most already work, according to analysis. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that 11.8 million more Americans would become uninsured by 2034 if the bill became law, and 3 million more would not qualify for food stamps, also known as SNAP benefits. Yes, if you're not looking for work and you don't have a job, I'm sorry. You need to get out there and go get a job. Look, the government can't subsidize everybody. Taxes would go, we would have to be either a high tax nation and give you all the entitlements, or we'd have to be a low tax nation and just do it on your own, right? If you're a high tax nation, that doesn't make any sense logistically, if you will, because then you'll have a bunch of people not wanting to work because they don't want to pay taxes because the government's giving us free handouts. There's going to be a lot of people that are butthurt about that. Republicans are looking to have states pick up some of the costs for SNAP benefits. Currently, the federal government funds all benefits costs. Under the bill, states beginning in 2028 would be required to contribute a set percentage of those cuts if their payment error rate exceeds 6%. Payment errors include both underpayments and overpayments. But the Senate bill temporarily delays the start date of the cost sharing for states with the highest SNAP error rates. Alaska was the highest error rate in the nation at nearly 25%, according to Department of Agriculture data. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska had fought for the exception. She was a decisive vote in getting the bill through the Senate. A death sentence for clean energy, yes. Republicans are proposing to dramatically roll back tax breaks designed to boost clean energy projects fueled by renewable sources such as energy and wind. Renewable sources such as energy and wind, huh? Okay, I wonder what those energy renewable sources are. You ever heard of that? Hey, what is your renewable source of energy? Well, it's energy. The tax breaks were a central component of President Joe Biden's 2022 landmark bill focused on addressing climate change and lowering healthcare costs. Democratic Senator Ron Wyden went so far as to call the GOP provisions a death sentence for America's wind and solar industries and an inevitable hike in utility bills. How is that? I wonder how that is. How did he figure that? I have no idea, folks, because those are totally unrelated. A tax break for people who buy new or used electric vehicles would expire on September 30th of this year instead of at the end of 2032 under current law. Meanwhile, a tax credit for the production of critical materials will be expanded to include metallurgical coal used in steel making, Trump savings account, and so much more. A number of extra provisions reflect other GOP priorities. The bill creates a new children's savings program called Trump Accounts with a potential $1,000 deposit from the Treasury. The Senate provided $40 million to establish Trump's long-sought National Guard of American Heroes, which is a complete waste, by the way, I think. Like, currently, we don't need to be spending money on monuments. We've got enough monuments right now. We're spending in a deficit, folks. There's a new excise tax on university endowments and a new tax on remittances or transfers of money that people in the U.S. send abroad. This is great. Why haven't we done this a long time ago? The tax is equal to 1% of the transfer, which isn't enough, to be honest with you. A $200 tax on gun silencers and short-barreled rifles and shotguns was eliminated. Once again, more bad legislation. I don't know how this thing got across the line, y'all. I really don't. One provision bars for 1 year Medicaid payments to family planning providers that provide abortions, namely Planned Parenthood. Why? Why do these people insist on funding abortion? Did they think that any Democrat was going to vote for this? No, of course not. They knew 0 Democrats were going to vote for this. So why throw that in there and why take out some of the good stuff? Once again, they keep calling this is Trump's big, beautiful bill. No, I'm sorry. That is a lie. This is not Trump's agenda. Sure, Trump's agenda is in the bill, but this is definitely a Senate agenda, congressional agenda bill. They added so much pork and nonsense into this thing because for some reason these people can't seem to be fiscally responsible at all. At all, just none whatsoever. Let's go ahead and deficit spend our way into oblivion and bankrupt this nation and rob from our children's future. These people need to go. They need to be immediately fired, folks. I constantly say this. We need all new congressmen, all of them. Every single one of them has to go. Look, I always talk about these 10 or so congressmen that I like. Look, if it takes getting rid of those people that I do like, the good, if it means getting rid of the bad, I'm there with you. I'm right on with it. Let's do it, because something has to change. These people cannot govern us. They don't represent me. They don't represent you. They don't represent anybody in America. They don't care about the future of this nation at all. And these are, like, once again, conservatives that claim to be fiscally responsible got this bill across the line. Some of those Republicans that I like got this bill across the line. So they all have to go, folks. Every single one of them. Like, we don't have time for this. We're almost $37 trillion in debt. And these people cannot seem to get the book straight so we can get out of debt. The interest rates that we're having to pay, the interest payments, that's what I meant to say, are rivaling the Defense Department, which, by the way, is a lot more than many countries total GDP. $984 billion, almost $1 trillion. So the Defense Department's budget, by the way. And our interest payments alone are rivaling that number. They're a little bit less. Keep adding debt, that number's soon going to eclipse that Defense Department. It's nuts, y'all. It really is. Another section expands the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, a hard-fought provision from GOP Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri for those impacted by nuclear development and testing. Billions would go for the Artemis moon mission and for the exploration of Mars, while $88 million is earmarked for a pandemic response accountability committee. Why? Last-minute changes. The Senate overwhelmingly revolted against a proposal meant to deter states from regulating artificial intelligence. Republican governors across the country asked for the moratorium to be removed, and the Senate voted to do so with a resounding 99-1 vote. A provision that was thrown in the final hours will provide $10 billion annually to rural hospitals for 5 years, or $50 billion in total. The Senate bill had originally provided $25 billion for the program, but that number was upped to win over holdout GOP senators and a coalition of House Republicans, warning that reduced Medicaid provider taxes would hurt rural hospitals. The amended bill also stripped out a new tax on wind and solar projects that use a certain percentage of components from China. Look, folks, this bill is not good. I love Trump's agenda, right? Don't get me wrong about that. I love everything that Donald Trump is trying to do with this bill. But Congress just sabotaged everything. Abso-freaking-lutely sabotaged everything. They are intent, it seems like, on destroying this country. Deficit spending our way into oblivion. I just don't get it, y'all. I don't understand how these people can go to sleep at night. If you know anybody out there that has a close relationship to one of their congressmen, give them this video. Share this video with them. Let them know how pissed we are about this. Once again, I love Trump's agenda. If this would have been just Trump's agenda, I'd be just fine with it. But no, these greedy congressmen had to come in and say, I want this for my district and I want this for my district. You just heard some of those provisions. Well, let's put this in there or spend more money. Why? Why do we want to add to our deficit spending? We need more cuts. Look, if you got to cut everything, cut everything. We got to do something. Look, I don't like the fact that Donald Trump came in and cut the budget for NASA. I can't stand that, to be honest with you. Look, I like NASA. I like everything that they do because they are on the cutting edge of technological advancement that makes our lives pretty much what they are these days. There have been so many inventions that we take for granted every single day that have come from NASA that would not be there if it weren't for funding for NASA. And they have a tiny sliver of the budget. Tiny sliver of the budget. But look, once again, $1.8 trillion. That was from the last fiscal year. All right, and that was increased. Donald Trump's last year in office, $986 billion. I'm sorry, no, it was actually 3.3 trillion. Okay, but the 986 billion, that's not counting COVID spending. COVID just destroyed the deficit, just outright. And it's been over $1 trillion ever since. It's been close to two, pretty much ever since, which is insane. This is why Donald Trump and Joe Biden added $7 trillion to our national debt in just 4 years. This is why this is happening. Because Congress can't seem to get our spending levels back to pre-COVID spending levels, which we were still spending in a deficit, but it wasn't that bad. Like $980-something billion a year. That's terrible, but it is nothing like 1.8 trillion. That's double. It's outright insane. Something has to change, folks. And these congressmen, I guarantee you, most of them are all going to get reelected. It's just insane. Nothing is going to change. We need all new congressmen. For some reason, they're more worried about raising money, fundraising for the RNC or the DNC or whatever it may be, than they are worried about balancing our national budget. It is utterly insane. And something has to change about this. Something must change. We cannot continue down this path. Think about it. How many credit cards can you get before you just max all of these credit cards out and you know, creditors won't give you a credit card anymore and you're just racked with debt, and all of your debt pretty much equals your weekly paycheck. That's what we're getting to, folks. Our interest payments. That's what it's going to get to eventually. Once again, it's already rivaling the annual Defense Department budget. That is insane. It's almost $1 trillion annually. We can't maintain that, folks. We cannot maintain that. Like I said, something has to give, but I think I've rambled on for long enough. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Sign up, become a member. That would be awesome if you guys could do that. But y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.